Hello, my name is Jana Abou Hatab. Franklin Roosevelt says that man and nature must work hand in hand. The throwing out of balance of the resources of nature throws out of balance also the lives of man, which means that the balance between the acts of humans and nature ensures sustenance. For the article Building, Dwelling, Thinking by Martin Heidegger, I chose the quote, "Only if we are capable of dwelling, only then can we build." Let us think for a while of a farmhouse in the Black Forest, which was built some 200 years ago by the dwelling of peasants. Here, the self-sufficiency of the power to let earth and heaven, divinities and mortals, enter in simple oneness into things ordered the house. In his text, Heidegger examines the etymology of words to find the relation between building and dwelling. He argues that humans should understand what dwelling really is before building, instead of building then dwelling. He claims that for dwelling to occur, people should have a relationship with space and things while preserving their nature and their freedom. He also adds that humans should cultivate nature without destroying it. He gives the example of the Black Forest farmhouse built by the peasants as the ideal dwelling place, suggesting that it seems to be grown out of the earth itself because the peasants preserve the freedom and nature of things. These peasants preserve the elements of the fourfold that are earth, sky, divinities, and mortals, and work with it, not against it. In conclusion, unless there's balance and interaction between the act of building and nature, there is no equilibrium and sustenance. For the Rig 4, I wanted to embody the idea of sustenance and equilibrium through interaction, so I used the paper as a hinge to hold the sticks and the cylinder together. All the elements support each other to stand in equilibrium, and if I remove only one element, the whole model loses its equilibrium and no longer exists. For the rig N, I added some planes and I made some cuts in the cylinder to create space. The model also seems standing in equilibrium in the air. The interaction between the model and the two large planes represents the interaction between human and nature that creates sustenance and equilibrium. And for the movement, I made planes that slide on a track, and by this motion, one plane makes another plane stand in equilibrium, and the other plane makes a stick come out of the cylinder and stand in equilibrium also. So the motion of some elements makes other elements start to exist, stand in equilibrium, and maintain themselves in a spot in space, and thus they sustain. And if I slide again the planes to the other side, these elements fall, lose equilibrium, and no longer exist. For the conceptual drawing, I tried to show a state of equilibrium, so the model seems tilted to the back and standing only through one stick on a black plane. For the inspiration, I chose dust because flour is a kind of dust that represents sustenance for human beings. For the in situ, I chose the grain silos at the port of Beirut because they are used to store the grains that also represent a sustenance. And for the ex situ, I chose the mill, which is a device that breaks solid materials like grains into smaller pieces by grinding, crushing, or cutting. Here on the left, we can see a picture of the site before the Beirut port explosion, and on the right, we can see a picture of the site today. While doing the context analysis, I discovered that Beirut existed even before history. It was a stone land that emerged from beyond the sea during the past Stone Age, thus becoming the land on the east of the Mediterranean Sea. Ever since 7000 before Christ, the modern Stone Age man has resided in this land. Beirut port was officially opened in the year 1894 to the wide maritime traffic, but its genesis was many centuries before that. Work began in the port of Beirut in the Phoenician era. The Phoenician port of Beirut was located in the Min al-Hassan area. Boats and ships used this port for protection due to the presence of a natural breakwater. The port of Beirut was one of the important strategic centers in the region, so that whoever seized it could advance towards the city and the rest of the regions. That's why the Franks in the Middle Ages, after their control of Beirut and the cities of the coast, fortified the port, thus fortified the city. And when the Muslims regained Beirut and the cities of the Levant, they improved the port of Beirut, especially since they used it to build warships by cutting wood from the Beirut forest and making the ships between the Mastaba, the square of Beirut, and the port. My individual research was about the mulberry plantation and the silk production in Beirut. In the 19th century, what's known today in the Rawshe area was a vast agricultural area with different types of crops. Mulberry fields were scattered over the plains overlooking the sea. The Lebanese knew silk for 2,500 years when it was brought to it from China via the Silk Road through Persia and Arabia. It was made and dyed in the Phoenician cities and re-exported to the rest of the countries of the Mediterranean basin, especially to Rome. As for the breeding of silkworms, which produces silk, Lebanon has known it since the reign of Emperor Justinianus in the 7th century after Christ. Then the silk industry developed under the rule of Emir Fakhreddin in the Lebanese mountains. This industry was not limited to mountains only, but also included the coast. The largest trees in the coastal district of Beirut were mulberry trees, and no coast or village was free of this tree, which provided sustenance for the Lebanese for long periods of time. It's important to mention the movement of cocoons and silk between the port of Beirut and the port of Marseille. As a result, the maritime transport companies were established in Lebanon, as well as the first Lebanese bank, and the Beirut port was developed to accommodate large ships. This is my site model. My project is about reviving the silk industry in the port of Beirut. The entrance is here, and this is an area for several activities such as planting and weaving. Here is a memorial for the people who died in the explosion of the port, where the names of the victims are written with silk on the walls. The silos are used to farm silkworms to produce silk that can be exported and can also be used to weave the destructed parts of the silos in order to complete them, make them exist again, and therefore reach sustenance. These areas would be used for weaving and creating silk products and exhibiting them. Here, in the intersection of these two roads, there's the oldest mulberry tree in the world, which is the Bethnal Green mulberry tree in London, and here will be my folly. This is the model for my folly, which is composed of a funicular that takes people to a platform located in the middle of the middle silo. This platform is linked by ramps to the platforms in the other silos where people can learn planting and weaving. Then an elevator in the middle silo takes them to a platform on top of the silo, while the top of the silo that's tilted to the back moves forward to stand in equilibrium and complete the silo, reaching sustenance and creating a room where silkworms are grown. People await and observe the transformation of these silkworms into butterflies. This is my technical drawing, where we can see that the red road is parallel to the ancient Silk Road that links Tyre to Damascus, while the blue road is parallel to the new Silk Road that will revive the ancient railway linking Tripoli and Beirut. This is the material rendering. This is a sectional model showing my folly. I made a trench in the middle of the silos by removing 3 silos from the front row, and by adding my folly in this location, I want to create again a connection between the silos. Therefore, the silos exist again and sustain. So here is a funicular that takes people up to the platform in the middle. This platform is linked to the platforms of the other silos by ramps, where people can learn how to plant and how to weave. And then the elevator in the silo takes people up again to the platform in the top, while the top of the silo that's tilted to the back moves forward to stand in equilibrium, completing the silo and creating sustenance. And the room created here is used to grow silkworms and watch their transformation into butterflies. And the platform in the middle is where people coming up in the funicular meet with people going down from the top of the silo in the elevator.